A good night of sleep really helps you have a more productive, focused, effective, and enjoyable day. And a string of good nights of sleep compound into so many long-term health benefits that it's mind-blowingly crazy. But what if you're trying to sleep well and not quite succeeding? What have you not thought of that might be to blame? You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 85, Sneaky Disruptors That Might Be Secretly Undermining Your Sleep. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello there. Welcome to another episode. I'm so glad to be able to spend a few minutes with you today. How was your Valentine's Day? I hope it was fine. It's not my favorite holiday, but I hope yours was fun. How have your mistakes been going this past week? Have you come up with some good ideas to help you get more out of them? It's pretty great when the things we do the way we wanted to move us forward, but the things we mess up on also move us forward. Today, we're going to talk about some sneaky disruptors that might be undermining your sleep. If you love the topic of sleep or you need to be reminded of some reasons why it's so essential to your well-being, listen to my episode 49, Sleep is Not a Pillar of Health. That's a good one about why we sleep and how crucial it is to your well-being, both immediately and in the long term. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about why we don't sleep. I hope you know that you're undermining your health and longevity if you aren't getting enough sleep. And I hope that if you feel like you have a little room for improvement, you'll find something useful and easy that you can implement in your life to optimize that hallowed time. Just as a reminder, in his book, Why We Sleep, Matthew Walker says that the greatest public health challenge in developed nations in the 21st century is the epidemic of sleep loss. It absolutely causes widespread illness and premature death. It's about a lot more than just yawning or feeling a little lethargic sometimes. Cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, chronic pain, and more are all contributed to by inadequate sleep. Not to mention your experience of life and ability to create what you want for yourself and others. Studies even show that if you're in a calorie deficit to lose weight and you sleep 8.5 hours per night, 10% of the weight you lose will be lean muscle mass and 90% will be fat. But if you eat the exact same thing and sleep 5.5 hours a night, you'll lose 50% lean muscle mass and 50% fat. That's insane. That same weight loss could be the difference between losing 22.5 pounds of fat and 2.5 pounds of muscle, or doing the same thing and losing 12.5 pounds of fat and 12.5 pounds of muscle. That is huge. I don't care what you look like, but please preserve your muscle mass. I would say prioritize that over losing fat. It's so important. James B. Moss, in his book Power Sleep, says, quote, "If you understand exactly what the brain accomplishes during various stages of a night's sleep and what your individual sleep requirement is, you're in a position to become a very different person." People who learn about sleep come to value sleep and adopt better sleep habits. After a few weeks, they discover, perhaps for the first time, what it really feels like to be fully alert all day long. Their increased efficiency gives them enough hours in the day to work and to play. They become better spouses, better parents, and better in their careers. They become more energetic, healthier, more successful, and happier with their lives. That's life as it should be. End quote. What do you think? Do you want to become a very different person? One who has enough hours in the day to work and play? Do you want to be a better spouse, parent, and contributor to society? Healthier, happier, and more successful? That's why it's worth your time to focus on getting even a few more minutes of sleep every night. One of the biggest things that might be undermining your sleep is not valuing it enough. If you think you're too busy with more important things to spend more time sleeping, you're shooting your productivity in the foot. As Matthew Walker puts it in his book, Why We Sleep, Like a group of people riding stationary exercise bikes, everyone looks like they're pedaling, but the scenery never changes. The irony that employees miss is that when you are not getting enough sleep, you work less productively and thus need to work longer to accomplish a goal. This means you often must work longer and later, arrive home later, go to bed later, and need to wake up earlier, creating a negative feedback loop. Why try to boil a pot of water on medium heat when you could do so in half the time on high? People often tell me that they don't have enough time to sleep because they have so much work to do. Without wanting to be combative, I respond by informing them that perhaps the reason they still have so much to do at the end of the day is precisely because they do not get enough sleep at night. End quote. Are you staying up too late because there are too many things to get done? Maybe the reason why you're running out of time in the day is because you're boiling your pots of water on medium heat. It's not a good strategy. An even sneakier sleep disruptor could be valuing your sleep too much. Well, that's not really a thing. Maybe I should describe it as worrying too much about your sleep, being too attached to the outcome. I've coached some awesome smart people who understand the astonishing health benefits of sleep. They so desperately want to get good sleep that they do a whole host of crazy rituals, and then they're so frustrated and disappointed and deflated and angry when they don't sleep well. So then they're both underslept and aggravated. That's even worse. Like with everything, it's such a tricky balance to care deeply about something, work diligently for it, and still remain unattached to the outcome. To find your satisfaction in the act of following your process, not in achieving the result that you're hoping for. If you're feeling desperate to sleep better, consider whether the desperation might be perpetuating the problem and how you can loosen your grip just a little bit, still maintain the intention and the good habits without feeling cheated or defeated every time you're awake. To just accept what is and gently smile and still keep trying things and being proud of yourself just for trying. That's a tricky path to walk, but I do think there's a way. You just need to find it. Another big underminer of sleep that I don't think gets enough emphasis is consistency. Going to bed and waking up at the same time every day goes a long way to promote healthy sleep every night. Sleep researcher Matthew Walker says his number one tip for everyone in the world is to stick to a schedule. He says if you only take one piece of advice from him, it should be that one. Rather than setting an alarm to wake up, set one to go to bed. Weekdays, weekends, doesn't matter. You're undermining your sleep if you're not consistent about both your bedtime and your wake time. Hey, have you ever thought about buying an Oura ring? If you have, then you know that you can track your activity, recovery, and sleep with a light and unobtrusive ring that looks like a normal ring. I've had mine for almost 3 years and I absolutely love it. I check my numbers every single day and it helps me make better decisions. You can see real metrics that show the detrimental effects of eating too late or working out too hard too often, and the beneficial effects of balanced activity and turning off screens before bed. If you're a curious person who wants to see how much deep sleep you got, which is critical for muscle building, the Oura Ring can tell you whether you get the 75 to 90 plus minutes that you need for that. If you want to see if you got enough REM for emotional resilience, memory consolidation, and neurotransmitter production, your Oura Ring can tell you whether you got the 2+ hours that you need for that. I pay special attention to my HRV, which shows me how stressed my body is, and I always check my steps every day to make sure I've gotten enough non-exercise movement throughout the day. You can quickly check your heart rate, track your cycle. It connects the dots and knows why your basal body temperature increases for a day or two and uses that to predict your next period start date. You can see your sleep efficiency, which is a high leverage thing you can optimize for, and tag for things you might want to track like caffeine, fasting, sauna, melatonin, headaches, whatever. And it gives you monthly and quarterly reports. If getting more health data from an easy wearable has been on your mind, now might be the time to act. I have a link in the show notes that will get you $50 off. They make it super easy to find your perfect size and get started right away. Okay, back to the episode. So caffeine is a little more of an obvious, not to mention intentional, sleep disruptor, but a lot of people don't realize that the half-life of caffeine is 6 hours. So if you drink a caffeinated drink at 4 p.m., you'll still have half of a caffeinated drink's worth of caffeine bouncing around your brain at 10 p.m. So consider the timing of your caffeine. I'd recommend avoiding it after noon if possible. Also remember that caffeine just masks your fatigue, and the sleepiness keeps building up and building up until the caffeine vacates those adenosine receptor sites. It doesn't give you energy, it just conceals your sleepiness. Also, even if you can fall asleep, your quality of sleep isn't as good if you have residual caffeine hanging around. Alcohol and tobacco also very much disrupt sleep quality and quantity. Some medications can interfere with sleep. Some are more obvious, like Sudafed alone or in lots of cold and allergy combination drugs, and stimulants for ADHD like Ritalin and Adderall, which are really hard to get right now, P.S. But they cause alertness, and so do narcolepsy drugs like Provigil, so those are pretty obvious. Asthma medications like albuterol can rev you up and make it hard to sleep, and so do steroids, both inhaled and oral. Steroids mimic cortisol, which is the hormone that helps you wake up or keeps you alert when you're stressed about danger. Medications for Parkinson's disease can often make it hard to sleep, and most antidepressants can cause impaired sleep in some people. Some blood pressure drugs can also cause secondary symptoms that interfere with sleep. It can get a bit tricky, but if you're doing all the sleep hygiene things and are feeling undermined, it's possible it could be your medication. And then you can come up with a plan, which in my opinion should not be adding another drug, but that's often what's done if you tell your doctor about it. Sleeping pills are generally not a great idea. They may make you feel sedated, but they don't provide the natural restorative sleep that we need, and they're definitely associated with an overall higher risk of death. Some sleeping medications like Ambien can be addictive and can cause sleepwalking and other like sleep Instagramming and sleep eating and sleep driving. I've heard some really crazy stories. Some are scary, like waking up in the parking lot of your work in your bathrobe in the middle of the night. And some are funny, like waking up to find half of someone else's birthday cake gone, or a bunch of posts on your own social media about how much you love Olivia Newton-John. Other medications that are sometimes used for sleep, like Benadryl and older antidepressants, are linked to an increased risk of dementia. According to leading sleep researcher Matthew Walker, being sedated doesn't provide the same benefits as naturally sleeping, and that tons of studies show that sleeping pills don't actually help you sleep better than placebo. You can also develop a tolerance to them so they stop working as well over time, and you'll get a rebound of really bad sleep for a while if you try to stop. Also, they often cause daytime grogginess, which is the opposite effect of what you want from a good night of sleep. Overall, I'm not opposed to melatonin, but it can actually be a sleep disruptor itself. If you take too high of a dose and/or you take it consistently, you can develop the same tolerance and rebound problems that you get with regular sleeping pills. Some people who have a certain gene, I'm not sure what percentage of the population it is, but they wake up in the middle of the night on the nights that they take melatonin. They get to sleep, but it increases their core body temperature at around the 4-hour mark of sleep, and they're just suddenly awake. Their eyes pop open and they're staring at the ceiling. My husband says that happens to him. Melatonin's better at inducing sleep than maintaining sleep. I definitely think you should optimize your body's own production of melatonin, and it's fine occasionally in low doses to help you get to sleep. Most of the problems with melatonin are not present if you take a low dose, like less than 0.5 milligram. And it might be something you want to do more consistently as you get older, like in your 70s, 80s, and 90s. There are for sure people who will disagree with this, and that's fine, but I tend to believe that taking high doses and or taking it every single night can be detrimental to your body's own ability to make melatonin itself. And of course, there are always exceptions like brain cancer and COVID when you might want a higher dose. Next up, do you make the connection between movement and your sleep quality? Remember that movement nourishes your body and is more than just exercise. Exercise is totally awesome for your health and longevity, but it raises your core body temperature, which is also good, but not at bedtime. If you exercise within 3 hours of bedtime, that core body temperature boost can make it so you don't get deep sleep. Also, as far as I know, there isn't research to back this up, but I love what Pete Egoscue says in his book about his theory that if we don't fatigue our muscles enough during the day, we don't sleep well at night because our work and rest cycle isn't complete. I know it's true for me that if I haven't done anything challenging with my body for a few days, I don't sleep as well at night. Also, I swear I can feel the difference when I get up and at least move to change my body position every 20 minutes versus when I don't. I think having sedentary periods makes me feel more tired, but then sleep less deeply. And I also personally seem to sleep better when I've done a little stretching and or deep tissue massage around an hour before bed. Another less obvious potential problem is food. If you're able to sense the difference and connect the dots between what you ate and maybe more importantly, when and how you slept, you are way ahead of most people. Back in episode 29, we talked about the importance of your glymphatic system. Do you remember what it is? That's one of my favorite subjects, so go back and listen to that one if you missed it and care about the longevity of your brain. But in addition to messing up your brain, eating too close to bedtime messes up your sleep. If you have an Oura ring, you can easily tell. It will even tell you, it can tell you ate too close to bedtime because your heart rate doesn't lower till later in the night and you don't get as much deep sleep and REM, which isn't good. If your body is too busy digesting, it doesn't have the chance to do all the amazing things it normally does while you're asleep. There are also probably individual food items that are specific to you that might mess with your personal sleep, like foods that you might be sensitive to. Nutrients affect how you sleep too. Whether from food or supplements, you need enough magnesium to be able to sleep restfully. Most people, like almost everyone, doesn't get enough. If you were to only take 2 supplements, magnesium should probably be one of them. Go back and listen to episode 41 about magnesium if you want to learn more. Zinc also helps calm down your nervous system, and calcium helps with REM. Glycine is an amino acid that helps with sleep. If you remember from episode 78, glycine is abundant in, collagen protein. It does some cool things, including that it helps you sleep by pushing your blood out to your extremities, which decreases your core body temperature while you sleep. Pretty cool. If you have enough glycine, you feel more refreshed after sleep. And if you're going to have a night where you know you're going to miss an hour or 2 of sleep, like you have to get up for an early flight or something, you'll feel better in the morning if you've gotten adequate levels of glycine for the previous few days. Okay, here's something interesting that I recently learned. We know that you want sodium and potassium in proper balance, like generally for most people, but maybe not everyone. The low sodium fetish is not helpful. Processed foods are detrimental to your body, and processed foods like TV dinners usually have a lot of sodium. So that makes this a little tricky because in that case, yes, you'd be better to avoid it. But the overall point is that rather than just eating lower sodium, you need the proper sodium to potassium balance. You get potassium from fresh vegetables, fruits, and legumes. Here's the thing though, if your potassium is low, especially in relation to your sodium, you have to urinate more frequently. Hence, if your potassium level is adequate and in balance with your sodium level, you don't have to wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night as often. Crazy. If you haven't gotten optimal sleep, have you considered playing with the temperature of your bedroom? Optimal is 65 to 67 degrees. There have been studies about it. Not raising your core body temperature with exercise or sauna, or for some people melatonin, right before bed matters, but so too does the temperature of your room and your bed. I know I definitely sleep way better in the winter than the summer because I despise being hot, but it's true that you're possibly undermining your health if you don't sleep well because the temperature of your house is too warm. But even people who think they prefer to be warm sleep better when their room is cooler. There are a few companies, one is called Chili Pad, that make temperature regulating mattress pads. I totally want one. It pumps cool water through if your body temperature gets too high while you're asleep. Awesome. Someday. But make sure that your temperature is optimal if you haven't figured out why your sleep isn't great. And I think you want your head to be a few degrees cooler than the rest of you, which kind of makes sense. Light is another one that might be kind of more on the obvious side, but I definitely don't think most people grasp how important, which then makes it sneaky. We could talk about this for hours and hours, but know that your sleep is largely governed by your circadian rhythm, and your circadian rhythm is largely governed by your light exposure. One of the best things you can do for your circadian rhythm is to get up and get natural sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. A few minutes of sunlight exposure when you first wake up every morning will pay off in better and deeper sleep every night. Like, for reals. The payoff is disproportionately high compared to the effort. I love this and think it's such an easy and powerful hack, but kind of hard to do when you wake up before the sun, especially in the winter, but you can go outside as soon as the sun does come up. Then, of course, light at night is a really big deal. A tiny bit of light in your room can decrease your sleep quality. You don't want night lights or even alarm clocks with glowing screens. Having blackout curtains on your windows, unless you live in the middle of nowhere, is important. Your body can sense the light, like not just your eyes. It's wild. And if you wake up in the night because you have to go to the bathroom, definitely don't turn on the lights. You can get red motion activated night lights if you really need to. And the light you're exposed to for a couple of hours before you go to bed is also a big deal. Your body can't produce melatonin to help you get to sleep if you have the lights on. If you've ever tried those red lensed glasses, you'll know that you can tell a difference when you block out the light before bedtime. I love mine. We're evolved to sleep when the sun is down and only have the occasional firelight at night. So having daylight bulbs on and blue light emitting screens and all the things really, truly can mess you up. It's totally common to turn all the lights on when the sun goes down, but it's not optimal. There are tons of easy things you can do to hack your light exposure, so let me know if you want to hear more about those. Your hormones are another factor that can sneakily affect how well you sleep. We often think of that main hormone that's produced by your pineal gland, melatonin, but your sleep can also be affected by a very important hormone called insulin. If you're not as sensitive as you could be to your own insulin, your blood sugar levels aren't well controlled and you don't sleep as well. Your sex hormones also affect your sleep quality and quantity. The main one I think of is progesterone. Progesterone is awesome. Go way back and listen to episode 7 if you want to learn more about progesterone. But you need to balance your estrogen and progesterone can help you get a good night's sleep. If you do take progesterone, topically is generally the overall best route of administration, but if you need help with sleep, taking the progesterone orally at bedtime will produce metabolites that assist with sleep. And we know that if your estrogen levels are uneven and they drop suddenly, you get hot flashes and night sweats, and that doesn't allow you to sleep. Also, in both men and women, low testosterone levels cause frequent nighttime waking and contribute to snoring and sleep apnea. Optimizing your hormone levels is not easy, and it takes a particular kind of expert that you won't find just anywhere, but it can upgrade so many areas of your life. This one is more overt than sneaky, but just really quick, if your housemates are waking you up, maybe there's a solution that you haven't thought of yet. If you have a cat or dog that disrupts your sleep, there might be a solution there, and it might be time to implement it. I'm not the one to offer it because if I had a cat or dog that woke me up, I would for sure no longer have a cat or dog. I militantly trained my babies to sleep through the night by the 8-week mark because I wasn't even sure about keeping them around. It totally worked though. They've always been excellent sleepers. I'm very spoiled as a mom. And in my opinion, more effective because I'm well slept. If your partner snores, I've heard of a few good products you could see if he wanted to try, like Mute that goes in your nose, or the Good Morning Snore Solution, which is some kind of crazy tongue holder thing that seems to work well. Even starting with mouth tape could be a good option. And if you're the one who has trouble breathing at night, certainly get help for that. That should be your number one priority if you know that. There are a few apps that will do a discount version of a sleep study on you. Sleep apnea is way more common than people realize, and taping your mouth and possibly using Mute or the Good Morning Solution if needed might be a game changer for you. One thing that I think might be the number one sneakiest sleep disruptor is drama. We like drama. We watch movies and TV shows and listen to and read novels and get lost in the characters and who lied to who found out about it, who died unexpectedly, who's not actually dead, who seems sweet but is secretly evil, whose baby got switched at birth, and who is violently torturing who. The emotional responses are what makes the story good, but being all amped up on the emotions of a good story, especially one that ends in an excellent cliffhanger, isn't the optimal brainwave state for inducing restful sleep. If you're having trouble getting to sleep after watching gladiator movies or whatever, that's an easy fix. Don't watch those at bedtime. It might seem hard to adjust your routine, but it's really not, and the payoff is so worth it. Even if you do control your inputs in the form of fiction, sometimes real-life drama can sneak in and prevent us from sleeping. I personally don't think of stress as bad, even though there are all kinds of reports saying it's the number one serial killer, and if you don't reduce it, you could drop dead at any second. If that's empowering to you, that's fine. Do your stress-reducing activities, and those will help you sleep. I think there's a better way to think about it, but that's all part of a longer discussion. What we do know is that being in a chronic beta brainwave state prevents us from sleeping. Beta waves are awesome, just not when you're trying to sleep. If you're alert and focused and ruminating and worrying, it's no wonder you can't sleep. The good news is that getting out of that enervated state is absolutely a skill you can learn. You're not stuck there. It's just been an unconscious habit. It's not because there's something wrong with you. You can change it. There are also a couple of supplements like L-theanine and GABA that can help that switch to alpha and then theta brainwaves and eventually delta. That drama brainwave thing is very much interconnected with the last sneaky sleep disruptor on my list today, which is the ability to focus. I've heard that genius used to be the holy grail of high performance, and now it's the ability to focus. Focus is the new genius. If you can focus on something on purpose for an extended period of time, you're like a unicorn these days. It's a little hilarious, but mostly sad to me to watch people in a movie theater during the show. Watching a movie does not seem like it should be considered a genius act, but so many of them can't make it through the show without checking their phone. Some of them like 30 times. Seriously. If you train your ability to focus, you will absolutely sleep better at night. The best way I know to do this is with meditation, but there might be other ways. But when you practice meditation, you get better and better and better at having a thought pop into your head and being able to just dismiss it. Let it keep traveling past you without becoming attached to it. It's so magical. I can totally feel the difference in my life when I'm consistent versus when I get off track with meditation. Waking up at night is not the time to try to solve your life's problems. Consider it bonus meditation time until you can get back to sleep. If your trouble is falling asleep, meditation might be your biggest lever to pull. A 2009 Stanford study found that a 6-week mindfulness meditation course resulted in falling asleep twice as quickly every single night in an average of 15 minutes instead of 33. So you get the time you spent meditating in the morning back in sleep time that night. If it seems like the thoughts you have when you're trying to sleep are important and you haven't trained yourself to just let them pass by yet, you can keep a notebook by your bed and right before you go to sleep, write down everything from out of your head until your brain is like wrung dry. Then when you're trying to fall asleep, you can know that you've already captured all of those important things. So there's nothing left that needs to be taking up your brain juice. When I went to the Heroic Live conference for heroic coaches like me in December, my mentor, Brian Johnson, was showing us his personal app of what, daily routines he has set for himself to be able to function at such a high level. It's stuff like do 100 burpees and kiss my wife. And one of them that I saw on the screen before he had gotten to talking about it was called Sleep in the Citadel. I know he's fanatical about his sleep, so I was like, whoa, what is that? I was thinking it was some kind of $30,000 sleep pod or a coffin-like device or something. I was so curious. I love hearing about crazy contraptions and I couldn't wait for him to get to it. Then when he did, he just kind of fleetingly described it as his mindset when he's in bed. Huh? I looked into it a bit more, and in his notes on the book, The Inner Citadel by Pierre Hadot, Brian quotes the author saying, "This borderline, which objects cannot cross, this invoidable stronghold of freedom, is the limit of what I shall refer to as the inner citadel. Things cannot penetrate into this citadel. When the guiding principle thus discovers that it is free in its judgments, that it can give whatever value it pleases to the events which happen to it, and that nothing can force it to commit moral evil, then it experiences a feeling of absolute security. From now on, it feels nothing can invade or disturb it. It is like a cliff against which the crashing surf breaks constantly, while it remains standing unmovable as the waves come, bubbling to die at its feet." End quote. And Brian describes how each time we focus and respond on purpose to the world around us, rather than reacting and being swept away, we're adding another brick to our fortress. We intentionally decide what the borderline is, and we purposefully set a sentry on a watchtower to make sure that nothing outside of us can get in and disturb our inner peace. The Citadel is a place of absolute security, but it's also a lifelong building project that's always evolving. It's pretty cool, so it makes sense to want to sleep there at night. Maybe you'll want to sleep in a Citadel too. I hope yours has more modern accommodations because, fascinating as they are, those medieval fortresses do not seem especially pleasant. I hope you found something easy and actionable that you might be able to use to stop your sleep from being undermined. Actually, I just thought of this, but in September, when I was at one of the best medieval fortress tours ever of Trim Castle in Ireland, which is where Braveheart was filmed. The tour guide told us the medieval origins of a bunch of common phrases we still use today, like undermining. Undermining was literally digging a subterranean passage under the ground and then under the castle wall to either gain access to the keep or collapse the structure. Castle designs changed over the years to make undermining less successful, like making the walls have a larger footprint, slope out, and not have any sharp angles. I think it's so weird to think about, like, you'd have to know that a mining crew was out there trying to dig their way into your house, right? Like, it was a major operation. Do you just stay inside and hope for the best? I don't know. But I do know that you don't have to deal with that with your sleep. You can consider whether one of these things might make a difference for you and stop those scoundrels from weakening your citadel. You can recognize that you'll get more done if you're fully slept, be more consistent with your bedtime and wake time, stop drinking caffeine by noon, talk to your pharmacist, maybe that's me, about your medications, avoid sleeping pills, pay close attention to how melatonin affects you and possibly lower the dose you take, move frequently throughout the day but not too late at night, eat the right nutrients but not too late at night, lower your bedroom temperature, get light in your eyes first thing in the morning but not late at night, optimize your hormones, problem solve your housemate interruptions, minimize the nighttime drama, both fictional and factual, or improve your ability to focus. Only start with one thing that you can stick to and see what you notice. Next week, we're going to talk about how to feel more alive. Until then, build your inner citadel and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.